All right, good morning again, everyone. This is Nick Petro from the National Weather Service in Raleigh with your weekly impact weather briefing for Central North Carolina. And this morning's briefing covers the period today through Sunday, through the 5th of August. And jumping right into the weather pattern, and you can see really what the early week and midweek slides represent is a wet pattern. We've got high pressure that is located off the coast, and let me get my highlighter here going. You've got sort of a high pressure area out here, and you've got southerly flow, which is bringing a lot of moisture up from the south. You've got low pressure here over the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. So that's what's going on right there. Notice kind of this high offshore, the southerly flow, and look how little the pattern changes into early or into the midweek period. And you can see that by late week and this weekend, well, actually, late week, you can see there's still not a lot of change with that southerly flow around the high that's offshore. And so we'll keep the very moist air mass over us. Now, there is some hints here. I would say, rather than hints, I would say some uncertainty with this weekend. One model suggests, we might get a little break in this pattern and maybe try to dry out a little bit. There are other models that suggest some upper energy might roll in from the east and would keep the rain chances going right through the weekend. So unfortunately, it looks like this wet, kind of somewhat busy weather pattern is going to stay with us at least through the end of the week and maybe into the weekend. Now, it won't be raining the entire time, but when you get these bands of rain setting up, that's what we have to watch out for. And let me show you by example here. This is the current radar and temperature and warning situation, and you can see as long as there's clouds and rain, we'll hold temperatures into the low 80s, maybe upper 70s, and you could see these batches of rain are going to come in sort of occasional batches, or I hate to use the word bands because I don't want to confuse people with a tropical cyclone. This isn't obviously a tropical cyclone, but in these bands, these clusters, these areas of rain, and I apologize for the image in the flickering there, but you can kind of get the picture. There's an area of rain over the southeast portion of the state, and consequently there's some warnings, flood warnings down there, and you can see the area of rain that moved through the triangle earlier today has now moved northeast of the triangle, and now the eastern portions of the triad area are seeing some of that persistent rain. Fortunately, it's fairly light at the moment. So I don't think what we're seeing right now would produce any flash flooding or localized flooding issues, but we have to be very cognizant with repetition, and especially if any of the heavier rain becomes repetitive or over the same areas. But I just wanted to kind of set the stage. This is the type of pattern that we have in place, the kind of results of that pattern, and this might continue literally right through the week. So back to the slides. I wanted to point out, this is from the Storm Prediction Center. This is the severe thunderstorm potential. Everybody's pretty familiar with these plots from SPC, and they have us kind of in a general thunder, or the light green, which means no thunderstorms expected, or no severe thunderstorms, I should say. The light green means there can be thunderstorms, but this is more of on an organized basis. If there are, I always remind folks that in the summertime, in the warm season, you can never entirely rule out that an isolated severe storm, can never be ruled out, especially in the warm season, the summer months. And typically, that can bring heavy winds. I drove through a shower yesterday. There wasn't even any lightning, and it had some pretty strong winds with it. So we can never rule out severe, strong winds, but very isolated in nature, but no organized severe thunderstorms or severe thunderstorm events are expected today, Tuesday, and into Wednesday. All right, so moving on to the next slide shows details about the rain. And you can see, just looking at the colors and the shadings, the light greens represent lighter rains. As you get into the blues, that's heavier rain. And notice how the focus for heavy rain today, at least, is over the central and eastern part of the state. And then that focus for heavier rain, shifts a little bit more westward as the week goes on. So that certainly by Wednesday and even into Thursday and Friday, it looks like the greatest flood threat heaviest rain threat will be across the western half of the state instead of what it is today across the eastern half. So if you're in the eastern half of the state, that's kind of good news. But if you're in the western portions of the state, the heavier rain threat is headed your way for the latter half of the week. When you add it up over the next 7 days, you can see down in the lower right those red shadings. That represents rainfall amounts of 3, 4, and even up to 5 inches. But again, the greatest amounts are expected to our west over the mountains. The whole state is set for at least 1.5 to 2 inches. But again, from central and eastern portions of the state, perhaps a little bit more, a few inches more than that. So all in all, kind of a wet pattern. This product is offered from the Storm Weather Prediction Center, rather. And this is kind of like the Storm Prediction Center's Day 1, 2, and 3 convective outlook, but this is for heavy rain, for excessive rain. And again, when you get these slides emailed to you, you can go to the link I have there at the top if you want to delve a little bit more into these graphics. But basically, with the takeaway and the gist of this is that the greatest risk for excessive rainfall today is essentially across the northeast part of the state, and then it shifts, as I kind of alluded to already, across the central and western portions of the state as we head through the middle and then finally the end of the week. So the whole state is at a marginal risk for excessive rain pretty much right through the week, but again, the greatest risk will be shifting westward as we head through the week. All right. Tropics. Fortunately, right now, no new tropical cyclones are expected during the next 5 days. That's good news. And then as we look ahead to the following week, so next week, courtesy of the Climate Prediction Center, the rain chances indeed look like they're going to continue. We may continue into a wet or semi-wet kind of period next week, and that's why the temperature outlook is neither above or below, or maybe even hints of below, because anytime it's wet and cloudy, naturally it'll be a little cooler. So that's the reasoning for the below or near normal or neither for temperatures. But the takeaway from this is looks like things could stay wet, or at least a risk for wetness continuing into next week. All right, so finally on the summary slide, you can see down at the bottom, it's very persistent. Every day there's a chance for rain. Every day we're looking at high temps in the mid to upper 80s, although keep in mind where it's raining and where it's cloudy, those readings might be a little lower. And then, of course, with cloudy conditions, it usually stays a little bit warmer at night, so we're looking at lows in the lower to mid 70s for lows right through the week. Very persistent. Wet pattern this week, and that pattern may linger even into this weekend. There's a lot of uncertainty for this weekend. The main hazard and concern, of course, is flooding with all the rain. Although isolated strong thunderstorms with gusty winds can never be ruled out in the warm season, but again, the main concern is flooding. We're not seeing any tropical cyclone concerns right now, at least. The Climate Prediction Center 8 to 14-day outlook suggests the wet pattern could continue into next week. And then finally, with all this rain, you're probably wondering, well, what about the rivers? That water's got to go somewhere. We are keeping an eye on the rivers, and especially the Yadkin and Haw rivers. Because, as I said, the focus for heavier rain will be shifting westward through the week. Right now, there's no river flooding forecast, but we'll be keeping a close eye on the river system. Okay, so that's the weekly briefing, and I appreciate you joining me as always. Let me go ahead and excuse me. Let me go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll be happy to take any questions. Okay, so sorry about that if the audio dropped out. Sometimes when I hit the stop recording, the audio drops out. So anyway, audio back in. So let me go through these questions here, and then I'll address these here one by one. So bear with me here as I go through them. So Roger, appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Melvin, you're asking about the Cape Fear, and again, we think that the Cape Fear is going to be okay. Obviously, some of those western rivers will run into the Cape Fear eventually, but right now there's no flooding forecast on the Cape Fear. Hang on a second, Scott. You think the Cape Fear is going to be okay as we head through the week? Okay, so one of our lead forecasters on duty, you may have heard me just yell across the room. He says he thinks the Cape Fear is going to be fine as we head through the week. So Melvin, thank you for that question. Any other questions before we wrap this up? All right, as always, your opportunity to coordinate and chat with us, ask questions doesn't end here. You can call us anytime, and we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have. So feel free to reach out to us anytime, especially if you see things deviating from what we've shared here today. So thanks so much, and we'll do this again next Monday, unless there is a threat, a greater threat for severe weather or flooding, in which case we'll do intermediate briefings as well. So thanks again. Have a great week, everyone.